the commercial real estate market in California has been pretty quiet the last 12 to 18 months. I don't know if you want to call it locked up, pretty close. There's some different economic reasons for that. One is properties are just overpriced given the current level of interest rates, and sellers are having a hard time with that. So I'm starting to get calls, not a lot, but one or two a month, from real estate agents or brokers that are trying to figure out how to get properties to sell, how to get them to move. So I got a call like that a couple weeks ago from a real estate broker in the Bay Area. And there's some lessons from the conversation I had with him, so I wanted to tell you guys about it. So this broker represented a client that owned two parcels in one of our local counties. They were both poultry farms. Combined, they were about 100 acres, so 100 acres of poultry farms. And together, the farms were listed for about $20 million. That was the asking price. I suspect that's probably 30% too much, maybe 40. So they'd been on the market for over a year, and they weren't getting any bites, and the seller was frustrated. And so the broker called and said, hey, I'm trying to figure out what to do about these two poultry farms. I can't get them to move. And we were wondering, could you guys fill out a rezone application for us and get us a rezone, to something else. He didn't know what, but he said, we just, could we rezone them and then maybe I can get them to sell. And so I said, I want to be honest with you. So, I'd love to do work for you and for your client, but we probably can't, given the county that you're in. So if you don't know, if you're in the Central Valley, it's really hard to change an ag zoning. People are very concerned about preservation of farmland here. It can be done, but you got to have the right money and the right lawyer, and it's hard. It's hard to do. So I said, yeah, that's going to be an uphill battle. I said, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I would need to know a lot more. I would need to talk to you more, and I'd need to talk to your seller. I need to do some research on the regulations. I'd need to have some discussions with the county, with the planning staff, and find out, who your board of supervisor is and what their kind of stance on development is. And, there's a lot that we'd have to look at. Is your Landon and Williamson Act, which is a tax saving vehicle for agricultural land here in California. So I said, look, there's a lot of things that would go into this, and I would have to take a look, but probably going to be an uphill battle. I said, now there's some other things we might be able to do. Even within ag zoning, I said there's some ag worker housing we can do. We could maybe look at getting a conditional use permit and changing the use that way. We could possibly do a lot line adjustment in a subdivision. One of these parcels was big enough to subdivide, almost big enough to subdivide. I said, so there's some things we could do potentially to increase the value, but if we can't, for rezone isn't practical, we can maybe do some other things. But I said, I would need to get paid to look at all of that. I said, I'm not going to do that for free. I said, we can put together what we call a zoning report and a land development opportunity analysis. And I can give your client some real options with some real numbers behind them, but I said, I'm going to charge to do that. I said, and I, probably would recommend a $20,000 retainer for something like this. And the broker thought about that. The phone got quiet for a minute. And he said, you mean you can't just do a rezone for a couple of $1,000? And I said, no, I can't. I can't just fill out an application and charge you $1,800 and rezone this property from ag to high density residential. That's not how it works. I said, now look, you got to sit your seller down and have an honest conversation with them, broker. That's your job. You got to tell them they could spend $250,000 potentially, and realize a real increase in value through some entitlement and permitting work. But that's 100 times what he thinks he wants to spend. And it's not $2,500. It's $250,000 probably. Now maybe not. Maybe it's $125,000. But it's an order of magnitude more than what you guys are expecting. And not only that, I can't guarantee the results. You could spend some money. You could spend $20,000 or $50,000, go through some applications and prepare a tentative map, do some different things. I said, you might get shot down, you know, or the conditions of approval might be too expensive to make this project pencil. I said, I can't guarantee results. That's land development, right? So he thought about that for a minute. He said, well, I'm not sure my client wants to spend that type of money. I said, no problem. I said, you called me. I said, I'm not sure I want to take on that kind of project right now. To be honest with you, I was like, I'm just telling you the truth. I said, look, I said, I'll tell you what, I said, I can send you over some sample reports that we have, zoning report, land development analysis report. I said, talk to your seller. You know, if you guys are interested in kicking the tires and seeing what your options are, let us know. But, you know, it's a $20,000 retainer. It's not $2,500 to guarantee a rezone. So I never heard back from him. And I followed up with an email, you know, a few days later, and he ghosted me. So what do we learn from this conversation? There's a few things we learn. So despite what you might hear from the con artists on LinkedIn or YouTube, there is no easy or risk-free way to make money in real estate, especially in California. Commercial real estate is complicated and it is risky, and there is no easy button. And this guy wanted to call me and have me promise for $2,500 that I could increase the value of his parcels by 30%. That's $6 million. There is no way to turn $2,500 into $6 million in real estate. There just isn't. There isn't a way to do that in any other part of the economy either, unless it involves gambling. So that's a reality. I can't charge you $2,500 for a rezone and add $6 million in potential value to some poultry farms. That's not how the math works. So this landowner, the owner of the chicken ranches, he or she basically has three choices. So 3 or 4. Here's the first thing they can do. They can drop the price of those poultry farms by 25% and hope that somebody is interested in being in raising chickens or turkeys. That's what they're going to have to do. If they want the easy way to move those parcels in this market, it's a significant price drop. So that's option 1. Option 2, they can get into the land development business with me. But they need to bring a checkbook and an appetite for risk, because that's what land development is about. You know, there's upfront costs and can't guarantee results. So that's the second option. The third option is you do nothing. You let those poultry farms sit on the market and wait for a buyer. And that could be a long wait. I don't know. It could be 5 years. It could be 10 years, depending on what happens with the real estate market. And I don't know. You know, you're paying taxes on those poultry farms, and they might be losing money. But that's an option. The other option, option 4, is learn how to make more money raising chickens and turkeys. So maybe, you know, you can go back and say, hey, how do we increase the profitability of these poultry farms? That might make them more appealing to a buyer, and maybe make some more money in the meantime while they sit on the market. But yeah, there's probably not an easy button there, right? There's probably things you can do to make those poultry farms more profitable, but most of those things probably take some money, I would imagine. And they're not easy to do. So just as a side note here, I got a couple side notes. I never recommend clients do option number 2, which is get into the land development business. Now, I still have clients that decide to do that, and I try and help them. But I never recommend that as the option. So if I was talking to this seller, I'd tell him, man, drop that price 30%. That's just, your broker doesn't want to tell you that, but that's what you need to do. The reason I don't recommend option number 2 is because, you know, we talked about it. Land development in California is really hard. And it takes money and an appetite for risk. And, you know, professional developers typically have the best chance of success at that. Now, I do occasionally take on what I would call an amateur developer, you know, someone that has inherited some property or has some property that they want to do something with. But, you know, we always let them know up front, this is hard. We're going to do the best we can to guide you through the process. We can't guarantee results. Some people still want to take that risk, and that's okay. We try and help them the best we can, but it's not something I recommend. The second side note is, you know, the real estate broker in this situation may not have the best incentives to give the landowner honest advice. I suspect he probably overpromised when he got the listing, you know, or he overpromised. He told that landowner he could sell those poultry farms for more than they were worth, and now he's in the hot seat. That's my guess. So he doesn't want to tell the landowner the truth, which I suspect is we got to cut this price 30% to get these to move. Now, I'm not saying that the broker was dishonest. It may have been when he listed those poultry farms, he really thought that they were worth what he listed them for, but they weren't, and they are now for sure. So he's got to come to grips with that reality. And then the other thing is, I'm pretty sure the broker's under probably some intense pressure by the owner to get the sale at the listed price. That's what the owner wants. That's probably what the broker promised. But none of those three things give the real estate broker an incentive to be honest with the client about what the chicken farms are worth. Another problem with the broker is he's interested in a short-term solution, right? He wants to close that sale and get his commission. This problem doesn't have a short-term solution probably other than cut the price. It probably needs a long-term solution. So anything I can do to increase the value of these properties is going to take us 6 months at a minimum, and 1 to 2 years is more likely. And that's not the type of solution the broker is looking for. The broker is looking for a quick solution. So can our team add $6 million of value to $20 million in poultry farms? Yes, there's a high probability that we can. We can't increase the value of commercial property by 25 or 30% in 2 weeks. And we can't do it with a rezone for $2,500. So if that's what your broker is telling you or thinking, you need to get a new broker. And I always encourage people, have a good land use planner, private land use planner, or private land surveyor consulting with you on these types of transactions, because your real estate broker has some really unhealthy financial incentives, and they may not always be giving you good advice. So, ideally, instead of getting a call from the broker, I'd have got the call from the person that owned the poultry farms, right? Because then I could have given them some good advice, and I'll never hear from them again. I didn't have a quick and easy answer to this broker's problem, and I'm not even confident he's going to tell the owner what I said about his options. So if you're doing commercial real estate, don't have your broker be the only source of advice about what to do in commercial real estate transactions.